The portfolio management class, to the late Dr. Bob Kennedy's credit, it was created in 1971. It's the third oldest student-managed investment fund in the world. The University of Wisconsin beat us by 1 year. And before that, there was a small college somewhere in Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, that had a program back in the late 40s. It's still a small college. I can't recall the name of the college right now. But we have the third oldest student-managed investment fund. So it was created in the form of a separate trust, which is somewhat unique among student investment funds today, and run by universities and colleges. And it was created with the idea that the proceeds, once you hit a certain benchmark, in terms of assets under management, it could be used to fund student activities like trips to visit with leading companies in New York and other locations. So we do this with the proceeds from that class on a regular basis. That's an important part of the portfolio management class. Anyway, it started up with $100,000 in 1971. With the 1973 oil crisis, it promptly shrank all the way down to $40,000. So if you think about it starting in 1973, from $40,000, we built it up in a substantial way. And that shows the power of compounding growth in investments, which is a great lesson for students in itself. We currently have about I think it's 1.4 million in the Rebsamen Trust, but remember, we've been taking money out to fund many trips over many years. And it's also spawned several other courses and funds. So the students are all involved in the management of all of the different funds. Some courses focus on specific funds. The portfolio class focuses on this thing called the Rebsamen Trust. We have the Arvest fixed income class that manages $5 million on behalf of Arvest Bank, which is part of Arvest's capital. So the students will make recommendations to Arvest, but Arvest ultimately has final say. And we also have the Schulmeyer Fund class, which was created with a gift from Dudley and Ken Schulmeyer, basically a graduate version of the portfolio management class, which is for undergrads, typically seniors. So the Schulmeyer Fund has about $400,000 in it right now, up substantially from its initial gift of $125,000 in two parts. So it was really $250,000. And then we have money that we're managing on behalf of the U of A Foundation, which is currently about $4 million. There's another account in there that we're managing on behalf of the Garrison family. And we have the most recent fund is the David Carter Adams Energy Sector Fund, which is probably the only, or at most one of two different energy sector funds that we're aware of anywhere. And that's related to basically a huge growth in capital investment in the energy industry in Texas, also Oklahoma, and even here in Arkansas with Murphy Oil and Murphy USA. We have a very close relationship with energy companies also in Oklahoma, specifically Phillips 66 and ConocoPhillips, and that goes back many, many years. And as those companies have grown and performed tremendously, we've benefited from that. So we're actually placing students from portfolio in with those energy companies. And we have a very close relationship actually now with ExxonMobil, where we have a large number of alumni, just a tremendously supportive company. And there's other students in energy companies like Shell Oil and Apache Corp and others. And then, of course, in financial services, because of our location, a lot of students will land positions in finance or accounting jobs. And often the positions will move people back and forth from an accounting to a finance job and vice versa. In financial services, supporting the energy industry. So that's also just geographically a thing that we take advantage of with the portfolio class. We have other very close relationships also with companies like Walmart. Large number of our students work in many different capacities from all of these classes, portfolio, Schulmeyer, and Arvest Fixed Income at Walmart, and Tyson Foods as well. We have a very large number of internships and then full-time hires with Tyson Foods, which is a tremendous supporter of the college too. Let me get back to the portfolio management class. So the portfolio management class, again, being as old as and established as it is, we have a very, very close relationship with Stephens Inc. Investment Bank in Little Rock. Now, Stephens Inc. is the largest privately owned investment bank west of Wall Street, largely because Stephens Capital Partners is about 10 times the size of the bank itself, and the bank uniquely will take its analysts and have them involved with investment recommendations and actual investments and ongoing close relationships with companies that are invested in by the Stephens family through Stephens Capital Partners. So Stephens has a reputation for one of the absolute best companies in the country in terms of equity research, increasingly, and sales and trading. They have a huge part of the market for that, and just a tremendous company. So we have, with the portfolio management class, over the many years that it's been in operation since 1971, we have a very large number of former, not just University of Arkansas or Walton College of Walton College of Business with finance major, or those kinds of alumni. Actually, from the portfolio management class, the Stephens Inc. is full of former graduates. And Kurt Bradbury, for example, is the chief operating officer for Stephens Inc. Awesome performer in investment banking. Basically, is running the bank on behalf of Warren Stephens. He was actually in the very first portfolio management class. And we have many other people who are highly distinguished who were in the class as well. Rennie Rutledge was also in the portfolio management class. He's the chairman of First Security Bank here in Arkansas. And of course, they own Cruz and Associates, which is one of the biggest, best municipal bonds investment banks in the country. And again, we have former students that are working both at the bank and in Cruz and Associates in Little Rock. We have a great relationship, for example, with Bank of Oklahoma, which is the 21st largest bank in the U.S. They're very proud of the fact they were the largest bank not to take any TARP money in the financial crisis, and they own, for example, the Bank of Texas, Bank of Arkansas, have a huge presence in Wisconsin, and a big trading floor. For example, we've taken our students several times to BOSC Securities in Little Rock, where they basically make the market for derivatives used when you get a mortgage and they lock in the interest rate for 1 or 2 months. That's done by the bank taking out a position in a derivative to secure those rates, and BOSC Securities out of Little Rock is actually where most of those securities are traded. We also have students who have gone to work from the portfolio management class in many other types of corporate positions. So we've sent them, for example, to GE Capital in the past, Boeing Aircraft. I had students, personally, I had some of my students work, for example, at Boeing at a F-18 plant. We're making and refurbishing or repairing F-18s for the military, for the Navy. And we also have students, for example, one's just finished an internship with Lockheed Martin and received an offer to go there when she graduates. We have one that is at, used to be called L3 Communications. So we're going to be meeting with him actually when we go to Dallas. For student trips, I'm a firm believer that students learn best about business from practitioners. So what we do with the portfolio class, we try to transition academic theory with the real world. And to do that, we'll take students out on these trips to places like New York, Chicago, Little Rock, sometimes for company-specific visits to places like Wichita. For Koch Industries, we have a very close relationship with Koch. That's K-O-C-H, not C-O-K-E. I'd like to have a closer relationship with C-O-K-E. But we also take them to Bartlesville. 80% of all finance and accounting jobs in both ConocoPhillips and Phillips 66, even though they're both headquartered in Houston, 80% of the positions are in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and that's only a 2.5-hour drive. Also, we take students to John Zink Hamworthy Combustion to show them what manufacturing facility is. Yes, we still do manufacturing in the United States, and we do it in a big and a great way. So John Zink is a Koch Industries subsidiary, but they make main burner units for refineries, specialized equipment for offshore drilling rigs, that kind of thing. And the students get a tremendous exposure to see what's happening with manufacturing. Of course, the company is using state-of-the-art robotics as well as employees. Just a terrific experience for the students. So we take them to a typical visit to New York. In the past, we might have had students on the New York Stock Exchange. We don't do that so much because the stock exchange has changed. When we first started going to New York, when I took the class over in 2003, we would be going to basically the exchange. They had all 8 rooms, the garage and all different places, and the stock exchange were just beehives of activity. Over the years, the stock exchange has become increasingly computerized and off-site. So now you'll see CNBC, Fox Business, and others. They're actually down on the floor. There's only one room, the main room, that's still in operation, and you could almost fire a cannon off and not hit anybody. There's so few people there. It's just the nature of the exchange having changed. But we took them there, for example. We've been at New York Life, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Private Bank, Stephens Inc. Again, we've always had a very close relationship with Stephens, so they have a big New York office that we'll go and visit and talk to the people that are involved, particularly in research, but also private client group, managing individuals' portfolios. Basically, we've been at Oppenheimer Mutual Funds, at UBS, all kinds of different companies in New York. And one of the experiences that the students have had when they go there, we'll take them to kinds of high-end clubs on occasion to get them to experience kind of how New York is, when you get to a certain level of the financial services industry. So, for example, we've frequently had students in to the Union League Club of New York. 6 former presidents were members of that club. J.P. Morgan started it. It's just around the block from the J.P. Morgan Library, which is his old home. And just to get the experience of what it's like to be with old money in New York and the nature of kind of the financial services community in there. It's just phenomenal. And I've had many students just in almost shock in a positive way when they would go through that experience. We also take them to places like as I say, Chicago. We've had them on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade and Options Exchange, and many firms, Bank of America, Securities, and others in New York. We have a great relationship actually with Wolverine Asset Management, which is, they make, I believe it's at least 40% of the market in options, and they physically located themselves adjacent to the CME because their view is the extra 40 feet or so in distance between the CME and their facility as opposed to their competitors at the speed of light gives them an advantage in the ability to process transactions with that, I don't know if it's a nanosecond or something even smaller than that. Just that physical distance actually matters, and just a phenomenal company. And then we also take them increasingly to Dallas. Now we've been going to Dallas now. This will be our 10th year. I've got 44 students going with us to Dallas last week of August, and also to Houston. We have a very active alumni network in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we've been involved with visits to many different firms there. Again, Stevens will be typically the place we start off. Energy investment banking and research, at least for oil and gas, is concentrated in the Dallas office, so it's a natural because of our involvement with energy as well to go to their office. We also will typically go to HIG Whitehorse Capital, to BNP Paribas, where we both have alumni at both companies, TIAA. The University of Arkansas turns out to be one of the very original clients of TIAA. Shortly after it was funded and created with donations from Andrew Carnegie. This would be back at the turn of the 20th century, early 20th century. And because of that, we've been able to leverage that to build a much closer relationship with them. So we'll get students in typically for a whole morning to learn about all different aspects of TIAA. Sometimes I have a challenge with our students to get them to consider nonprofits as companies to work for, because this is the business school. Everybody's thinking about profits, but I try to point out the TIAA is like a top-tier Wall Street firm. In New York, we often go to the TIAA headquarters, and they have 5-star Lipper or Morningstar rated mutual fund managers who will move back and forth between for-profit Wall Street banks or investment firms. Neuberger Berman, we've got several students at Neuberger Berman, for example, and TIAA. And that's just a terrific experience. We also are now, again, kind of branching out into other industries where they want our students. So we'll be visiting, for example, with Texas Instruments in this upcoming visit. So that's Dallas. We have a great relationship also with Luther King Capital Management in Fort Worth. Luther King is kind of a giant in the industry, and we have some alumni who are working there. Just a terrific experience. TD Ameritrade has a massive facility. In fact, they've just increased that facility, built another one that opened last November. We'll be taking students down there. We have a great relationship with TD Ameritrade. Fidelity Investments is relocating thousands of people from the Boston area to Fort Worth and Dallas for cost savings. And Charles Schwab, I understand, is now locating thousands of people out of San Francisco into the same area. So this is also a place where just the demand for our students is off the scale. So this is part of the reason also for going to Fort Worth in particular.